Hello everyone, this is Shanupriya and I am from Western Institute of Technology, currently pursuing third year in Computer Science and Engineering. In this video, we are going to discuss about callback functions. What is callback? It is just a function that is passed as a parameter to another function and then it executes and do some work and then it calls this callback function. Let us take an example for, let us take an array. Lily. Now let's use a callback function for each. Here it is showing that for each is also a callback. Now here we will pass the callback function name, an arrow function, and we will print the values. So we will run this once. See, it's giving me the values John, Ria, and Lily. Let's comment this and we will use another one. We will create our own function name my. Let's take a name for each and we'll pass the parameters array and a callback function, an arrow function for. Here we will use a for loop for iterating through each value of an array, and here the callback function will be called, and outside the function we will call the function name and the parameters. Name of the array is names and callback function name will, and we will print console.log of name. Let's print this node space app.js. See here it is giving us the same. These two are the examples of the synchronous. Synchronous is nothing but it means that you can only execute one function at a time. Now coming to asynchronous, it can execute multiple functions at a time. You don't have to finish execute one function in order to move to the next function. So asynchronous is used, callbacks are used in asynchronous mode. Let us understand the asynchronous using callbacks with example. Let us take a function, do homework. Let's give a subject name as parameter and a callback function. And here we will print homework started. Homework, we will pass the subject name here and started. Now we will use a set timeout function. Using this function, the execution of the statement will be delayed. Here let's take a timer for 2 seconds. After the completion of the 2 seconds, the statement will be executed. So here let's print a statement, homework is executing, homework subject names, is going on. And we will set a timer. We will have to call the callback function here. So we are calling the callback function and we will set the timer of 2 seconds. Now we will create another function after homework and sub. Here we print homework finish it. Now we will play. Now I can play. Now we will call the function. The first function name is do homework, and we will pass the subject name parameters. Let's say max, and a callback function. Here we are passing this function as a parameter to the callback function. So here we will going to write after homework. This is known as callback function. This function name is passed as a parameter here. So let's try to execute this. Node space. Sorry, I didn't save this. See here, you can see that. So here I need to keep backticks. Then only the subject name will be displayed. Node space app.js. Here you can see that after executing the first statement, it is waiting for 2 seconds and then the next two statements are executing. See, after 2 seconds, the remaining statements are executed. So this is done using the set timeout. We have set the timer to 2 seconds. So in this way, the asynchronous functions can be executed. Multiple functions can be executed without waiting for the other function to complete its execution. Now let's take another example for callbacks. Let's take a function step1 and we'll pass a parameters value and an error. Oh no, callback. And here we are going to call back the value. We need to change this value. I'm incrementing it by 10 and a false. If error occurs, it returns true. This value becomes true. If there is no error, then this value will be false. Now let's include more steps first. This is for step 2 and for step 3. And now we have initialized the values. Now we need to print these values. For this we are going with step 1. We are initializing the value with 10 and a function, callback function, result1, an error will be passed here. If not error, if the value is not error, then we need to move to the next step. The result from the first step will be input for the second step. So here it will be result1 and the callback function result2 and error. Here it again checks. If not error, it moves to the next step, step 3. For this, the input will be the result2 and a callback function, result3 and error. And after this, it checks the error. If not error, we need to print the result. Console.log of. We need to print the result 3. Now let's execute this. Node space callbacks.js. Here we can see that the result is 40. Here I have checked call. Firstly, I taken the function step1 and I have initialized the value with 10 and I have called the callback function and then it repeats for the step 2 and step 3. Here I can see that I have only taken only 3 functions, but the code looks a little complex. If I taken more than 10 functions, it will be more complex. So this is known as, here we can see a shape called pyramid shape. If more functions are taken, then the code will be more complex, which is known as a callback hill. To reduce this, we have a best solution. The solution is using promises. Promises is also same as callback functions, but it uses 2 parameters which are known as resolve and reject. Resolve is used if the value is success, then it returns the true. If any error occurs, then reject will be used. It rejects the value. So promises is also a callback function, but it uses the 2 parameters resolve and reject. Let us understand the promises with an example. Let's take the same example function value and error. And now here we are going to return a promise. Return new promise. And the 2 functions are resolve, comma, reject. And here we are going to create an arrow function. It checks if the value is error. If not error means it needs to resolve. We need to increment the value, right? So value plus 10. If any error occurs, then in else statement we need to reject. Reject, error has occurred. In this way we have given. So this is for the step 1. Now we repeat this for step 2 and step 3. Now we have initialized the values. Now we have set all the code for the implementation. This code for the that we have set up for implementation is known as producing code. Now we have to write the code for where the output will be printed, that is known as consuming code. Now for writing the consuming code, we need to take step 1 function name, and we need to pass in value and false. Now in promises we are going to use dot then for returning the values result 1, and here we going to implement step 2 result 2 false. We need to change here step 2 and here to step 3, and now dot then result 2 here result 2 will be stored, and here result 1 will be stored false. Error will be set to false if there is no error, and for here result 3 will be stored returned, and we will print the result console.log of result 3 as the no error for false. If any error occurs further, we are going to use dot catch of error, and we need to print console.log of error. Now let's save this and run this. Here also it is giving us the same result, but we can see that the there is less complexity when compared to the previous one. So here dot then and dot cans will be used for printing and returning the errors if any occurs. But we can see that here the code is also a little complex. It is better when compared to callback, but it is also complex. To avoid this complexity, we are going to use the async and await functions. Async and await is also similar to the promises, but here we are going to use async and await. Async is a function that returns a promise, and await is a function that waits for a promise. Now let us take an example for the async and await function. Step 1, value comma error. Here we are returning a new promise. Two parameters it has: reject, resolve and reject, an arrow function. And here if not error, we need to resolve, increment the value. Or else if any error occurs, we need to reject, error has occurred. So this is for the step 1. Now we are going to repeat this for step 2 and step 3 also. This is for step 3 and this is for step 2. And now we have initialized all. Now let's print the outputs for this. For this we are going to use async function and the name is result will be stored in result. Let's create a function and let's take initialize a variable result1 with let keyword, and here we are going to use await and a callback. Step 1 will be called. Now here we are returning the result1. Let's copy this and we will do this for result2. Here result of the second step will be stored and we are returning the result2. Now let's print result of a result. Now we are going to print the result. Okay, let's run this first. Node space. async.js. See here we got the value 20. Async event is also same as promises, but here the complexity of the code will be much easier when compared to callbacks and promises. Here two async and await functions will be used. If we want to use await here, then we need to use async also, otherwise it returns an error for us. So these are about callbacks, promises and async await. Now we are going to discuss about closure. Closures is nothing but it is an inner function that has access to the outer function variables and outer scope. It has access to inner scope, its scope variables, outer functions variables and the global variables. This is known as closure. Let us understand closure with example. Let's take a function. Example. Here let us initialize a variable. Let's use var keyword and a equal to 10. Now outside the function, if we call the function and if we try to print a, Now outside the function, we are going to access the variable a. Here the value of a is initialized inside the function. Let us try if it works or not, or it will give an error. See here. See, it is giving that here in console.log of a is not defined. It is giving us an error. Here it is not accessing the variable that are defined inside the functions. So let's take another example. Here we have initialized the variable a, and let's take another function inside this function. Let's name it as inner function. And here we will return a value. Here I have initialized the a value and I have taken another function, and inside that function we are going to return the a value that is initialized outside the function. Now let's outside the function. Here we are going to return inner function. Here let's take we are calling the function example, and we will print it. Let's execute this. See here it has returning the value 10. Here I have initialized the variable a is initialized outside the variable, and I am returning here the inner function. So it is giving the value. It has access to the outer variables inside the function. This is known as closure. Let's take another example so that we'll get more clarity. Let's take a function and make counter. And let us initialize the count variable to 0. And we are going to the return function. Here we are going to increment the count for every step, and we need to print the count value at every step. Let's give current count equal to plus count value. We need to increment the count value at every step, and we are returning the count value. So let's execute this. Now outside the function we are going to call the function make counter. Now we will call this function 3 times, and let's see how the output will go. Let's save this and we'll run this. Here we can see that it is giving us current count in first step is 1, and then it increments and gives us 2, and then it increments and gives us 3. Now let's call another 2 times. And let's save this and execute this again. Here we can see that here in the function, here this count is using the value that is initialized outside its function. It has scope to access this count value, and it is returning the value. This is known as closure property. And now we are going to discuss about the to-do list using the closures in JavaScript. Okay, let's understand the code first. Here we have initialized a to-do list, and a list is taken, and the name of the list is all. Now here all the items will be appended to this list. Here I am taking a first item, to-do item, and this to-do item will be pushed into the list. The list name is all, so I have written all.push of the item. And now I have created another function named mark as complete. This mark as complete is used to mark a specific item that is completed by setting a complete property. I have set a complete property to true. That means we can identify that the item has completed. The next function I have created is overdue. We need to check the list of to-dos. We need to find all the items that are overdue and we need to filter them. Here I have taken the string in to-do and we are going to filter them on the basis what the due date. The due date must be less than the today. All these items will be filtered and those will be stored in the overdue function. And due today, it will filter the due today. It will compass the today's date and due dates and filters all them and stores them in the due today function. And in due later function, it compares the today's date and the due dates. If it is greater, then it filters these items and store them in the due later function. So this function is used for due later function. Then now here we are going to display them. We need to display the list, right? For that we have created this function. Here this formats the list for the display. Now here I have given this. So after completed, we need to show an X mark for that item so that it represents that the item has been completed, finishing. For that I have created an X mark for this. If it is empty means the task that is not yet completed. For that I have given an empty bracket. And now for this hides the due dates for tasks includes. Now we are going to return all these. Based on these values, the list will be, let us run this and execute this once. You'll get more clarity. To-do list.js. As we can see that here, overdue submit assignment. Here the parent that is completed, so we have placed the X mark here. Service vehicles that is not due today, so we can pay later, so that is empty. And these are the files that are filtered in due later, and these are filtered based on their dates comparison with the due today and today dates, and they are placed in the due today function. And these are overdue that has completed. These are separated on the basis of comparing those dates with the overdue dates. In this way, all are classified into the separate functions. And for the completed tasks, X will be placed, and for the incomplete tasks, it will remains empty. In this way, I have created the to-do list using JavaScript closures. Thank you.